In this video, I would like to introduce the topic that we're going to be covering in section 8.4. And 8.4 is called formulas. Now, by formula, we mean an algebraic equation that contains variables. So any algebraic equation contains variables, numbers, possibly numbers. Doesn't even have to contain numbers. It has to contain at least variables, an equal sign, and some mathematical operations. Now, there's two types of problems you're going to see in this section, and that's evaluating formulas and solving formulas. And by solving, I put the word rearranging here because that's basically what we're doing when we're solving a formula. Now I want to go through a few examples. Let's do a couple of examples of each one of these two subtopics in section 8.4. So let's start with evaluating formulas. The word evaluating means plugging in numbers, plugging in numbers for variables. Okay, so remember, a variable is a temporary placeholder for a number. So for example, let's say we have the formula for distance. Distance is equal to rate times time. Now that's an algebraic equation. It doesn't contain any explicit numbers yet, but each of those three variables, distance, rate, which is speed, and time, those three variables, they all are placeholders for numbers. So they represent possible numbers that you could have. So let's say you have this formula, distance equals rate times time, and you're given, let's say a car is traveling at a speed, rate is speed. Let's say a car is traveling at a speed of 55 miles per hour. And it's traveling at 55 miles per hour so let's say miles per hour, and it's traveling at that speed for 4 hours. So to evaluate the equation or evaluate the formula means to replace the r with the number 55 and replace the t with the number 4. Okay, so when we evaluate this formula, we'll get d equals 55 times 4, which is equal to 220 miles. Okay, so that's what we mean by evaluating a formula. Let's do one more of these. So I'll label this as question 1. Let's do another one of these. Let's say we have the area of a triangle. And the area of a triangle, area equals 1/2 times the base times the height. So let's say we're given, it doesn't have to be a right triangle. Let's just make it, something like this. So there's the triangle. Here's the height of the triangle. And here's the base of the triangle. So let's say we're given that the base, and this is not drawn to scale, but let's say the base is 3/4 of an inch, and the height is 12 inches. So when we evaluate this equation, again, that means plugging those numbers in for the variables. So we would say area is equal to 1/2 times the base, which is 3/4, times the height, which is 12. And if you want, you could treat that 12 like a fraction, 12/1. So let me erase that, and we'll say 12 or 12/1. Okay, so to evaluate means plug the numbers in and do the math. Okay, so if we multiply across the top, 1 times 3 times 12, that gives us a 36 on top, and on the bottom, 2 times 4 gives us an 8. And now to simplify this, well, 8 doesn't go evenly into 36, but 8 is a multiple of 4, and also 36 is a multiple of 4. So 36 is 4 times 9, and 8 is 4 times 2. And remember, to simplify a fraction means to eliminate any common factors from the numerator and the denominator. All right, so once we simplify the fraction, we get 9/2 square inches. So we're doing base times height, so that's 3/4 of an inch and 12 inches. So inches times inches is square inches. Okay, so that's a couple of examples for the first topic, evaluating formulas. So now let's look at the second topic, solving formulas. So that means we're not working with any specific numbers. We're just solving for a variable or rearranging to isolate one variable. So let's start with the formula for circumference. So let's say circumference of a circle. Circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. So r is the radius and c is the circumference. So we have c equals 2, which is a number, pi, which is a number, r, which is a variable. And let's say solve for r. So to say solve for r means we want to rearrange this equation so it's r equals. We want basically get r by itself, isolate the r. And in previous videos for solving equations, we talk about the addition rule and the multiplication rule. And those rules say that you could apply any operation you want to both sides of an equation, as long as you do the same thing to both sides. And addition and subtraction cancel each other out, as well as multiplication and division cancel each other out. So if we want to get r by itself, right now r is being multiplied by 2 pi. We don't have to worry about what the pi represents. It's approximately 3.14, but we'll just use the symbol pi. What really matters here is not the numbers involved. What matters is the fact that this is multiplication. We want to get rid of multiplication. So to get r by itself, we want to eliminate the times 2 pi, and the opposite of multiplication is division. So we'll divide both sides of the equation by 2 and by pi. So the 2 cancels with the 2, the pi cancels with the pi, and on the right-hand side of the equation, we're left with r by itself. And on the left, we have c divided by 2 pi. It doesn't matter if your r is on the right or the left. This is the same as saying r equals c over 2 pi. Either way. Okay, so that was just one application of the multiplication rule. Let's do a problem that involves both the addition and the multiplication rules. So just one more problem for this video. So let's look at the, so let me just go back. This was the circumference of a circle. Now let's look at a rectangle. Let's look at the perimeter of a rectangle. So we'll call this the length, and this side the length, and this side the width, and this side the width. Circumference and perimeter are basically the same thing. It's the distance around. So the distance around a circle, we call it a circumference. The distance around a rectangle, we call it a perimeter. But in both cases, it's the distance around. So for a rectangle, the perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And so let's take this equation and solve for w. So that's what we want to do here, solve for w. Which means get w by itself, isolate the w, which means on the right-hand side, we have to get rid of the 2l, and we have to get rid of this multiplying by 2. Okay, so we have a addition here, this is a positive 2L, so the opposite of a positive 2L is a minus 2L. And whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So on the right, this positive 2L and this negative 2L, they cancel. Which means on the right-hand side, we're left with 2 times W. And on the right, well, these aren't like terms. This is a P, this is an L. They're 2 different variables, so we can't combine them. So we simply say P minus 2 times L. Okay, so that was the addition rule. And now, let's apply the multiplication rule. We want W by itself. Right now we have 2 times W, and the opposite of times 2 is divide by 2. Divide both sides by 2. So on the right, the 2 on top and the 2 on the bottom, they cancel, leaving us on the right-hand side with W. And that was our goal, to solve for W. And on the right, we have P minus 2 times L, all divided by 2. All right, so in my next video, I'll go through a worksheet with 6 or so problems. So there's more examples of what I did in this video. But in general, the topic of this section, called formulas, there's 2 types of problems. Evaluating, and this is important because you need to be able to understand the question that's being asked and understand exactly what you have to do. When you see the word evaluate in a problem, that means plug numbers in for the variables. And when you see solve a formula, the word solve means rearrange. Isolate one of the variables in the problem. In this case, solve for R means rearrange the equation so you isolate the R, and then solve for W means rearrange the equation to solve for W. All right, that does it for this introduction video. My next video, like I said, I will work through a number of problems.